Thank you all for staying. It's been a long day. I think this is probably the most important panel, not because I'm here, but because we're going to hear from family members. And it's something in my work in Guantanamo that we were not able to do, was to really have the voices of people affected directly by the United States' policies speak for themselves. So I'm humbled to be here. I guess I want to keep my time short. I had planned to say a little bit about some of the conditions in which the family members of the people sitting next to me are being held in, but they will speak for themselves. I wanted to just actually make some connections between the work that I've been doing in relation to Guantanamo and challenging U.S. policies abroad. And as was mentioned, we have a case on behalf of challenging targeted killing going on in Yemen. I've been working in Guantanamo, and there really have not been enough connections made between the things, the violations that are happening abroad, the targeting that's happening abroad, and what's happening right here. So on that note, I would just say, for example, that the men I worked with at Guantanamo and represented, whose conditions the international community condemned and that we called torture and that we said were humane, are modeled after conditions in which the family members of the people sitting next to me are being held in. That there are gags on the ability of the prisoners in these conditions, on their family members, on their attorneys, to speak out about their conditions that are worse than the ones that I experience at Guantanamo and that my clients experience. That the solitary confinement and the isolation practices that were used to break down people at Guantanamo are conditions in which 25,000 people are being held in the United States. And, you know, as we talk about people being held for years in inhumane conditions, unjustly, for made-up and overbroad material support crimes, at the same time, there are people serving life sentences without the option of parole for aiding and abetting crimes they committed as juveniles. So the connections I'm making are broad. They go beyond just connecting U.S. policies abroad to Guantanamo and material support charges and what we're talking about here. They extend to the way the United States has targeted other communities, other minorities, the racism and the xenophobia and the anti-immigrant strains that have existed historically. But I want to start with that point, and just to make that point, because I think it's important to make those connections, to build broader alliances so that there are more of us sitting in this room, and so that we understand the broader background context in which to understand and work on these issues. And again, I don't think we've done enough of making those connections from my perspective as someone working on Guantanamo, so it's important to me to do that. One of the pieces that I just wanted to break off in everything we've been talking about and just say a few minutes about, and then really I will be short because I think you'll want to hear from the people sitting next to me, but is to spend a few minutes just talking about two special regimes relating to the conditions in which people are being held after they are prosecuted for the crimes we've been talking about, and the way the targeting and the discrimination and the profiling that we've been talking about extends beyond prosecution, it extends beyond conviction, and it continues in terms of the conditions in which people are being held. And these regimes replicate some of the worst aspects and the most painful aspects of what I saw at Guantanamo in terms of isolation and cutting off contact with family members. Just, completely walling off communication with the outside world. And the United States was able to achieve that at Guantanamo by establishing an offshore island prison outside of the mainland United States, where it said the United States laws and the Constitution didn't apply, but when it came to doing some of those same things on U.S. soil, it had to establish certain rules and measures to give it a certain legal gloss. But effectively, some of those very conditions do exist here. Those regimes are special administrative measures called SAMs and communication management units, and these are things I'm sure everyone here is very familiar with, unfortunately. Their purpose, their intention, again, is to isolate and to wall off communication in the worst ways, and we're talking about people who are largely, subjected to these units and to these measures are people who have not been convicted of violent crimes. They're people that we've been talking about today who have been charged or pled to or been entrapped in, or as a result of sting operations or entrapment or other things, for crimes like material support, that they are being held in some of the most restrictive conditions in the entire national prison system. SAMs, the Special Administrative Measures, have been around for over a decade, since 1996. The way they've been enforced and applied after 9/11 has been largely against people suspected of and convicted of terrorism-related crimes. CMUs, the first one, there are two that we're aware of, one in Terre Haute, Indiana, one in Marion, Illinois, established in 2006 and 2008. And just briefly, these regimes have a few things in common. One is that there is absolutely the way that decisions are made about whether SAMs will be issued and whether people will be designated for transfer to CMUs is on the basis of an internal administrative decision that has no transparency, that offers the person subject to them no explanation, no meaningful way of understanding why they've been subject to these measures and how they could challenge them before a decision is made. So there's absolutely no notice, no opportunity to do anything by the person being designated. The second thing is that in terms of some of the effects of having no opportunity to challenge and the secrecy around the way decisions are made, you can imagine that decisions are, the result of decisions is that these measures are applied in a very discriminatory and retaliatory way, and profiling is used. And so if you look at the numbers, the statistics in terms of who is subject to these measures and who is held in CMUs, I think the numbers speak for themselves. And for example, and again, even the statistics are not widely available, but as far as what we know, for example, we have a case challenging conditions of confinement in CMUs, and from numbers that we've been able to get there through FOIA requests, we know that, for example, in the Terre Haute CMU, for example, that there were 17 prisoners first transferred there. Of the 17, 15 were Muslim. By March of 2007, out of reported 48 prisoners who were reported there, 37 were Muslim. And in the last several years, as there's been a little bit more attention on these and a little bit more focus on the profiling nature of them, non-Muslim prisoners have been moved in as well, but guards have reportedly referred to these non-Muslims as balancers. So it's essentially a deliberate effort to sort of mix up the population to give it an appearance that there's a little bit more balance. But it's clear that the CMUs and that SAMs are used to target Muslims because they are perceived to be a greater threat to prison security. And I think what's stark is that, for example, when you look at the Marion CMU, whereas in the entire prison population, only 6% of that population are Muslim. In the Marion CMU, for example, 72% are Muslim. So when you contrast those numbers, it really seems evident the way these units are used and applied. I was going to spend some time talking about the severity of the conditions in the CMUs in particular, because that's a case that we have at the current moment. I would just say that they are the most restrictive in the entire federal prison system, and cruel, and just clearly unrelated to any rational basis related to prison security or any other purpose like that. But instead of talking about our case and describing conditions from a secondhand point of view, I'll just stop there and let the people next to me speak about their experience and what they've seen. I would just end by saying that I'm glad to be here personally and as a representative of CCR, and that I hope that we can continue to be an ally and a partner and a resource in this work.